Welcome to another episode of The Music of Life. I am your host, Eric Copeland. Today, it's all about relationships. There's so much battle going on. The battle of the sexes, like always, is aflame in today's world. So many people are so triggered over everything that men do or women do. Man, it's just one big trigger fest out there, and it can make you maybe feel a little uncertain about relationships, whether the dating world is even safe or even worth it. Is marriage an option? Is it even worth it? There's a lot of big questions that people are asking. In today's episode, you're going to meet my longtime friend, Dr. Ray Doctor, who has been a relationship coach for men and women for the past 30 years. He's seen it all, folks. Bonus, he also has a doctorate in psychology. He knows what the hell he's talking about. And we discuss this issue and how you can take the proper mindset and get a hold of the right tools so that you can see relationships that they still are beautiful, that there is an opportunity to feel grounded, safe, secure, and even free in your relationship. So if you're someone who wants to have a better relationship, first with yourself, then with others, then you're going to love today's episode, and I can't wait to share. I'll see you inside. How's it going, Dr. Ray?
How you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you're welcome. I was excited to. We were having a little conversation. We have a lot of conversations. We were having a conversation before the call, and we really wanted to talk about this whole issue with almost like there's a battle of the sexes again that you see in culture, and there's a lot of rifts between men and women and kind of what it means to be in relationship today. And, you know, you've been a therapist and psychologist for how long now?
Well, I've been coaching for 30 years. So I don't know when I got my doctorate in clinical psychology, but I've been in this field for about 30 years working with people in their relationships and other challenges they have going on in their life.
Yeah. You know, we're talking about how a lot of both men and women are kind of seeking knowledge right now. And if you go on social media, there's so much information like for men and then for women. And you kind of see there isn't as much conversation where they're really making peace or finding that middle ground. And that's kind of what I was interested in having a conversation today. So if you're someone that's watching and you are a little confused about how do you move forward in relationships today, like everything is just so different from like how our parents and even their parents were. Like, is there a way, is there a mindset, or are there philosophies, are there principles that you can adhere to that will allow you to feel safe and actually have a calm nervous system when dealing with relationships today? So that may sound like a tall order for some. So let's just roll into it, Dr. A. I want to know, well, just given that topic, what's your 2 cents on it? What do you see as like the symptoms showing up, the challenge? And let's just open up with some thoughts that you have on it.
So first off, the first thing that came to mind was how people are very divided with politics to health, like protocols, and many things like that, to where there's a lot of misinformation out there. Unless a person's sleeping under a rock or thinks that whatever they're seeing is absolute truth, more than likely they're not going to even watch this or listen to this. Okay, so I'm assuming that those who are going to be listening to this, watching this, are going to be open-minded and are going to agree with me and say, yes, there's a lot of misinformation out there and we are kind of divided. So with that same thought, that's happening also with relationships, because again, what we're maybe learning with social media is that there's profits that are being made by our insecurities, by our vulnerabilities. And so it's important to recognize that maybe in the past, we have become men and women, or whatever you want to call yourself, and we have sought relationships based off what we witnessed, what we saw, what was in social media, to what we witnessed in our parents. And now we're in a great time to really take personal responsibility and redefine how's that going to work for ourselves. Now, I understand that you might hear friends who are having bad luck. You might be reading things online. You might see the worst behavior. And of course, there's narratives about how bad women are and how bad men are. But the truth is that what you're seeing in some shape or form is to get views. Just remember that. So there's a conflict of interest of whether or not that maybe that there's truth in this. Even what we're sharing, I would say investigate for yourself. We're not saying this is the right way, follow us, and so forth. We're the authority on everything. We're come to this conversation, which what you're sharing, Eric, is like almost like as if we are what journalists were before, where they would get information from both sides and present it to the audience. And that's what you and I are doing. So what I see is that people have to take their power back and ask deeper questions, like such as, what type of relationship do I want anyway, even if men are being marginalized, or I feel this way as a woman or a man. It's basically just taking it in and getting clear with that word, which might mean like writing it down. It might be working with a coach. It might be like really taking personal responsibility of like with what it means to you and why would you want to be in a relationship today, even if there's all that negativity, because at the end of the day, there are happy married people still. At the end of the day, people are still meeting. People are still dating. So even while there's things you might see that are giving you mixed messages, or even if you hear bad stories, there's also a lot of happy stories. And in this moment, a lot of conversations is more around with what's not working, what's bad, and who to blame.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. I love the concept of it's not even a concept, just the fact that we have a reticular activating system. And once you understand how that works, and for those of you if you haven't heard of that, look it up. First of all, it's really interesting. But the reticular activating system is the part of your brain that learns to filter and focus on certain things. And usually it's going to be some type of an emotional experience that gets you to become biased towards seeing things that way. Like a real common one we can all experience is if you have purchased a new car or a new handbag or something that you thought like, wow, this is awesome. And you feel an emotional spike with it. You're going to notice you're going to start tuning into that. You're going to be seeing that car everywhere. And I think what the point you're making, Dr. Ray, is that be careful with your fears are being played upon for the purpose of clickbait and ad revenue, and you being afraid and concerned and worried and seeing more and more of what's wrong with the dating world makes you kind of a target, literally on the algorithm level for the drama of seeing that things aren't working the way that maybe you expect them or want them to.
Yeah, absolutely. So as an example, I don't know where this will be posted, but if someone were to say these guys are a bunch of a-holes and that I went listen to them and so forth, whether or not you were to keep that on the feed or not, by people just kind of agreeing with that and commiserating with that and so forth, they're actually helping the video or the audio get more views. And so there's things that are being purposely put out there to polarize people.
Yeah, it's I don't even think I thought of that, but when we were talking earlier, and I can see, like, especially someone who has a background in marketing and sales, and I've done lots of social media advertising. I mean, that's absolutely true. And it's not like you have to think there's some grand scheme or agenda behind it. Whether there is or there isn't, it doesn't change the fact of like where you place your attention is where you're going to get more of that, wherever you're getting your attention to. And it works very literally that way with your behaviors online, very literally that way. So maybe this is a good pivot then, Dr. Ray, because if that's one of the traps, we have to be careful. What you're offering is saying that, well, there's also counter information, or there's empowering information that will teach you to learn how to feel secure or safe in relating with yourself and with others. So why don't we shift gears and share a little bit of that, because you've been doing this for a very long time. We have conversations all the time. We know each other very well. We've both seen each other on our experiences and our things, areas where we've grown in life. You've seen me grow a lot with women and learning and overcoming the whole nice guy shit. What would you say are some of the top, like if you were talking to someone who was afraid and didn't feel secure in the relationships, what are some basic truths or things that you would want them to know to kind of get their mind to orient towards some solutions rather than the problems?
Are you talking about like where do you find a man or a woman, or if you want to use the language, high quality man or woman? Can you be a little bit clearer with what you're asking, just so I can give a better response?
Sure. Like if someone is avoiding being in a relationship where they're concerned or they're kind of caught in this trap that you're talking about of digesting all this drama and the fighting, are there any principles or truths like, things come to my mind are things like, we've talked about like the 3 stages of men or understanding masculine, feminine polarity. If we could just kind of create a little framework here to invite people, maybe later we could give them some specifics, but what are the philosophies or principles that help a person ultimately know that a relationship is something that can be helpful in their life, not a problem?
Well, first off, whatever experience we have, we are experiencing ourselves. And what I mean by that is, as an example, I have this sparkling water and I might, have this can, I hold it, I take a drink. And in that moment, you can have thoughts of like, why is he drinking this can on camera? It's unprofessional. To another person will say, it seems pretty, I love that he's very casual. To another person might go, you know what? I haven't drank water since this morning. And here I'm doing the same thing, but everyone who's watching this or hearing this is having a different experience. So we will project onto people and experiences what we are feeling. So the biggest gift that anyone can give him or herself is recognizing that I am the experiencer. I'm the one who's feeling this no matter what. Like for a moment, when you have those thoughts, those judgments, remembering that while I'm having these feelings, it's coming from me. So if it's coming from me, it's become more self-aware of your thoughts about this situation versus how you truly want to feel. For example, if I were to see a deer on the side of the road, and I do see deers all the time on the side of the road because of where I live. Now, I don't want to see death and a bleeding deer, particularly if I'm driving my son to school. Okay, so I want to set him off feeling good and happy and so forth. But if I drive by and I see that and I go, poor deer, and oh my God, who's the idiot who hit this deer? And oh my God, they left it in the middle of the road, and pour this, pour that, and start creating all these stories. And I'm feeling this, and it just say like it impacts my son and his experience of being dropped off. Then how I feel about that is definitely going to create an experience of just drop my son off at school versus I see it, I see the deer, I'm empathetic towards the deer, but I'm also going to choose to start this morning off in my heart and talk about the deer in a positive way with my son. And I'm using this example because it happened recently when dropping my son off at school. And it's where everything becomes learning anyway. So it's recognizing that I can react, I can blame, or I can also take pause and make meaning out of this that betters me as a human being to where I can be the best version of myself. Because at the end of the day, people get divorces, people get ripped off, deers get hit by cars. There's a lot of BS on the planet. And it's been this way for a very long time. It's going, and then what? What do I want to do anyway? It's being able to take personal responsibility and choose how you want to experience that anyway, because after all, you are the one who's feeling the experience. And it's creating more awareness in that little pause, that little space in which you only will have that if you have a calm nervous system, if you want to use Eric's language, to see that, to see how you're becoming and keep yourself in check. No differently if you're on a date. And this has happened where I hold these workshops where it was singles. And there's a moment where you're about to meet this person in front of you that you may or may not be interested in. And they're supposed to say something. And it was more of a trick question. And it was where when they're about to talk, I say, stop. I says, who's about to speak? Is it the person trying to get the person to like you? Is it the performer? How are you breathing right now? Are you trying to get something? Do you need something? How are you feeling? Who is about to talk? Is it your persona? Is it you trying to get something? Is it really who you are? Be aware of that. In that moment, hands down, almost everyone is going, wow, that's what he's talking about. That's that part of me that goes out there that's not even maybe really who I am. My emotions are leading everything, not my conscious mind. My trying not to be hurt again is leading my consciousness not right now. Avoiding being hurt is why I'm asking and trying to gather questions from this man I'm meeting for the first time. So that's what I'm talking about. You start becoming aware of what you're feeling, and recognizing that this is coming from me, and there might not be truth here. So let me be more curious and open and explore this conversation a little bit deeper, or this person in front of me.
Yeah, that's great, because I think what happens is often you find that those impulses or those reactions cause you to make knee-jerk deductions, and then you repulse from that situation, and then you rob yourself of the lesson that if you would have just kind of learned to be a little bit more proactive. So it sounds like what you're saying is like, this is a you issue. If you fear relationships, then that will come true.
Yes.
Right. Right. So getting to the, as I put it, calm nervous system is something that's always going to be like, we're going to have things that trigger us, because we have things that reside in the, shadows, so to speak, or in the subconscious mind, or basically they're stored in our nervous system, our body. And so if someone does something that creates a reaction in that body, instead of projecting and seeing that as something someone did to you, notice it in the body and then refrain from reacting to the person. And then you might want to, if you need to take some space and investigate, why does that trigger me like that? Then that's where you're going to find answers to why you're interpreting the situation as unsafe. And that kind of brings us full circle even into what you do with coaching, that you've done with many, many people in relationships, is that once a person turns inward and brings their consciousness and looks at the trigger, it starts to create some separation. They stop identifying with it so much, and then that's when you can start to create some change. Does that sound like I'm barking up the right tree here?
Yeah, absolutely. So what you talked about shadow, and Carl Jung created that, I would say, terminology and about like parts of ourselves that we've separated. So like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is a good example of Dr. Jekyll is this like conservative doctor, always being happy, maybe a people pleaser. And Mr. Hyde is like a FU type of guy, and like, is a little more charged and dark. And if it's separate from us, it can create anxiety. It can create a false sense of self and so forth. And when I work with clients, there's always a overarching, say, hidden belief. So for example, here are some, it's better to stay single than marry. Well, why would you say something like that? Because the person's been hurt. I always lock doors. People are untrustworthy. Men and women just can't be friends without sexual attraction. There's these presuppositions that are hidden that we have about life and relationships. But underneath it, if you go a little bit deeper, there's a fear that's driving that belief. And if that belief is still there, that is why you maybe will have difficulty attracting someone new until you transform that. For example, one might be where, all men are, men are unpredictable or something like that. Well, if you take ownership, meaning, okay, if I believe this, how does that impact me? It might be, well, I don't feel safe. I don't feel like I want to open myself up without a healthy container. Therefore, when I am with a man who's all over the place, I don't feel at ease. Okay, so what would be the state of mind you'd want to be if you were to have a man like that or a woman? It would be confident and able to trust myself. And so therefore that client would take on that state of consciousness, but also that, all men are predictable would be, rather than making it about what's happening out there, it would be that I trust my decisions. I trust my inner guidance. I track the best. I have healthy boundaries. So now this person who's done the inner work has these like new presuppositions. They've taken ownership to where they have a different lens on life. Therefore, they can attract and experience something new. So that's kind of in a nutshell how to do their shadow work. I know I simplified it to where they can attract something different than what they have had. But for most people, they have those shadows inside. And what happens is that they go out So when you see something on Facebook, on YouTube, to validate you, you commiserate with that. And then you just crystallize that more to attract more of that. And that's where I'm going with this is where, yes, there has always been men who cheated. There's always been some women who've been gold diggers. Sure, there's all kinds of people out there that who misbehave, who are inappropriate. They're not a match to you. But there's also people out there just like you who are looking for integrity, commitment, who want transparent communication. And that's where your focus should be, regardless of what is being thrown at you. And again, remember, social media and everything that comes your way feeds off what is hot. It feeds off of what is polarizing, because at the end of the day, what we both mentioned here, it's going to draw traffic. It's clickbait. It's going to make someone money. So it's very important to remember, just like us here, does this resonate with my heart? Does this sound good? Take bits and pieces of what we share, what you hear over there, what you read in a book, and try to make sense of something for yourself. Therefore, if there's anyone to blame, it's you. That I'm gathering information, I'm taking personal responsibility, and I'm going to put myself out there because I have this new information, this new self-awareness. And when you get to that space, hopefully what you do is you recognize that with each interaction I have with people, social media to people I go on dates on, is that you get a reflection of yourself of where you can still grow. And so whether it's negative or positive, I see all things as feedback to ourselves. Because again, what we feel is ourselves still. So whether he or she are doing something wrong or whatever, still you are the one that's being conditionally polarized by what you prefer them to do versus being unconditionally still in love with yourself and be able to see it from afar.
That's great. I think the biggest challenge, it's very clear the way you put it. The experience of the application, whenever this is new to you, of what you're saying, is one in which you're going to face contracted emotions and tension and a sense of a lot of resistance to that, because it requires you to stop when you break that habit of making it the world's fault or someone else's, and realize that when you take your power, it means you have to have that responsibility as well, because you're the one that only really has the ability to respond, that responsibility. Something I'll share that has always helped me do that is just to get a bit metaphysical. The concept of sacred geometry has been something that implies harmony in all of nature. In other words, if you look at the galaxies, if you look at down to the atomic level, look at the spiral dynamics in a sunflower or a shell, and the Fibonacci, the golden ratio, there there is beauty that is, and growth are principles of nature. They're hardwired into nature, and there's nothing you can do to change that. And the question becomes, are you as an individual, are you nature or something separate? And so this is important to realize you're just as much nature as a deer is. Your body is a creation that you didn't, as far as you know, didn't create it. It does amazing things. It heals on its own. It knows how to allocate energy. And what it requires often is for you to just not get in the way of its beauty, of its natural intrinsic harmony. And because we have conscious minds, we can choose to not live in harmony. But the permission slip that this offers me is that at your core, at your center, is the right to have that calm nervous system, to feel good, to like what genuine feeling good. I mean, you feel grounded in who you are. You feel free to express yourself creatively. You feel capable of going for things. You have an open heart and you feel connected to others and have a sense of community. You speak from a place of truth. You can trust the vision you have, and you ultimately make a decision that you can trust life. And that has there's an experience to that. And I think if people can remember that is like your North Star, that is your right that no one gets to take from you. And the problem I notice that a lot of people have is they don't just say, we were talking about this the other day, they don't just come down to a simple yes or a simple no. Mm-hmm. Because anything in between those two things is suffering. And so if you're in a relationship, let's say you're a woman and you don't feel good about something, and you just try to open up and share that you don't feel good about that, but your partner gets triggered by that and shuts you down for, having feelings, then you have to ask yourself, like, do I have the right to, like, there's nothing wrong with me having this feeling? And this is a time to have that boundary in place. So in other words, saying yes to yourself is okay. And not only is it okay, it is the strategy for, so-called abundance or happiness, or finding those moments of joy in relationships. And having a functional life requires you to say yes to yourself. And I think that's just an area I noticed that you have to be careful of, because like you're saying earlier, Dr. Ray, whenever people go down the rabbit hole of what's wrong with everything, you're really strengthening and reinforcing a no is what you're actually doing. You're like, actually a maybe. It's like if you really pay attention, what you're saying is like, I want a healthy, happy relationship, but I can't trust men. Mm-hmm. But the world it all sucks. But, and then you go find evidence of all those buts. And now you're not at a yes or no. You're not cleanly saying, no, relationship isn't for me, and I feel good about that. Or, yes, relationship is for me. I know that's right for me, and I feel good about that, which is making that decision is going to put you on a path of personal growth and have you learn to have that autonomy or that sovereignty as a person and say, look, it's okay for me to want, like, there's nothing wrong with you for wanting to have a healthy relationship. You just have to be willing to accept when people aren't willing to meet you there. You mm-hmm. have to accept when people are triggered by what you want. And that courage to do that courage to truly be yourself, I think is where people, including myself many times, have found faltering in those areas. And so those things really have to be cleaned up.
I was on an interview yesterday and asked a question on the spot. And I got a little bit tongue-tied because I was trying to find an example of what are some of the things that I might talk about when I first meet a person. And as you know, I'm in an amazing relationship, and my girlfriend's an amazing coach, and we do speak the same language. And to piggyback on what you just shared, and that question that was asked was, what are some of the things that you do to gather, discern whether this person is, a fit for you? In other words, and you don't want it to be like an interrogation. For example, do you want kids? Where do you plan to see yourself in 10 years? Like I've heard these types of questions because a man or woman is in fear. My last two exes cheated on me. If you're coming from that place of fear and you're putting yourself out there, you will meet yourself as the same version as you were when you're with your ex and not feeling good, because you will more than likely attract the same thing, or you will still just have the same negative thoughts about relationships. And that is, I can't trust him or her. So it's being able to move past that and putting yourself out there more openly to create and experience something new. Now, the question that was asked was, what are some of the things you gather when you meet someone for the first time? Well, as an example, I just go for it. So these are probably the two sets of questions that I would want to know. And one is this, is if I were to put all your exes in the same room, what would they say are your greatest strengths and weaknesses? For me, I would want that person to have a light-hearted approach to that. Like I will share what others maybe have said about me, but it also is an indicator whether or not this person is reflective, lighthearted, and can be honest with these aspects, because they're going to show up probably in this new relationship. And I think it's a fun way to also see whether or not this person's taking personal responsibility. And number two, and I do this with business partners as well, and that is, what do you like when you are in your shit? When things are challenging, you've got too many moving parts. It could be that your father's in a hospital, your child is sick, work is slow. Like there's so much going on. What do you like? It could be, I gaslight, I become really quiet, I'm not very affectionate, I seem angry or impatient. Number two would be kind of that. How do I know when you are in that? How do you know? So because you might not know it, so how do I know it as your potential new partner? And the third one is, how do I best support you? Because attraction can be really easy. The first 3 months could be really easy. In fact, you can meet a person who has seen a therapist, who's done a lot of work, but when they're in an intimate relationship, they're still probably practicing, because that's when that stuff's going to come out. And I don't care if they've been a coach for 30 years like myself, or they're like this great master guru or something, because all of us have some shadows. So as an example, with my girlfriend, if you want to know what I brought up with her, was that I said, I'm very comfortable being alone. Like I love my life. I have a lot of great things I can do. I don't get lonely. So it's probably easier for me to kind of go, well, it's just not working out. Goodbye. So I'm not like a serial dater, or I don't break up with people, but I did remain single for a very long time because I enjoyed it. So I said, when I'm in my stuff, that it could sound like I can just throw in the towels, because sometimes I notice I'm stressed. I'm like, you know what? I'm a single parent. I'm doing this and that. It'd be easier for me to kind of go, but that's not what I want to do. I want to lean into it. And so I want to grow. And so when we have these containers, a container would be where, what do you like when you are in your stuff? Is it okay to take pause when we're reactive? That's a container. To what would that mean? We can take 5 minutes, we can walk away, or we can say, can I call you when I take a walk, or the next day? That's a container to create a sustainable, healthy relationship. It could be when you're first starting to date. So I'm not sure about you, and I'm seeing some other people. That person might say, thank you for sharing that with me, but I'm not going to have sex with you until you're clear. Great. So within this container, you might be having sex with other people, but with this one person, you're not. but it's just really being transparent and open with containers, because those containers take a conversation and they create like commitments to this idea. They're kind of early on agreements. And that is how you build healthy relationships. How do we become in this? How do we talk when we're stressed? To what is your thoughts about this and that? And how can we talk about it? You know, for example, even sexuality. This is a funny one that I always would bring up in workshops when I had to do intimacy. And there would always be men and women in there. And where I'd say, like, when you think about sex, do you think about, foreplay, communication, blah, 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 like all this soft stuff? And mostly women put their hands up. I said, when you think of blowjobs and blah, 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 all the more graphic, men raise their hands. I go, yeah. I go, when you both start talking about sex, you both would say, I like sex. Sure, I'm sensual. And yet the man has one version of it and the woman has another version of it. So you're still going to have to collaborate in the middle of like what that means. Because say as a woman, you might be like, I'm getting to know this guy, and he's really easy to talk to. I think I'm maybe open. From what I understand, healthy women are still not 100% sure, even when they're taking their clothes off. Okay. They're like, how it can change. So just imagine she's, you go on a great date, you go and you tell the man, oh, I'm ready to, there's that mood that you're going to get changed or maybe get undressed. You go in the bathroom and, you come out in lingerie and he's out there with a heart on, holding it, like ready for a blowjob. And you say, like, what are you doing? And he says, well, I thought you said you were into sex. And she is like baffled, like, wait a minute, this is not sex to me. Like, slow down, buddy. And so no matter what, like, we have a different relationship to sexuality, to intimacy, to what we talk about, to the future of relationships, to what's needed in a relationship. So it's very important. Again, we go back to what I originally said. What does a relationship mean to me? What would a healthy relationship look like to me? Because more than often, people are talking about what they don't want. You got to talk about what you do want. And once you know how that works for you, maybe even write it down, then when you're meeting people, you kind of have that in the back of your mind. Because not only do you have that in the back of your mind when you have these conversations, energetically and emotionally, you'll attract more people like that. And that's why it's very important. Like you said, Eric, it's like getting to a strong yes or no. Like, yes to this type of relationship, yes to this type of experience.
Yeah, in between the yes or no is the skill of conflict resolution. And something that to extract out of what you're saying, like a couple nuggets, because that was really good stuff, was I think the big takeaways I'll say would be the tone that you set at the beginning of relationship. If you will be your authentic self up front and take that risk when it actually feels the most risky to be yourself, when you hope someone likes you or whatever. But the thrill is whenever you can be transparent and the person, it actually earns respect, it earns trust, and it creates intimacy very quickly. And it invites them to step into a container where they're also feel like, hey, I can be open and transparent too. Then you're inevitably going to have your differences, your so-called conflicts, with and the word actually just means to strike together. It doesn't actually have a negative connotation. It's just different things strike together. And in a law of nature is when any two things come together, it creates a third. Okay. So in your relationship, you have these differences. And so you're going to have moments where there might be some triggering or uncertainty, or I think sex is this, I think sex is that. But if you have a foundation of trust where you feel you can talk about things, then you kind of enter a negotiation, and then out of it will arrive something that will be exciting for both of you. And that's the faith that you have, like in the connection, and even in a friendship or a business partnership, any relationship, and even in your relationship with yourself, which I think is a great place to start, or the essential place to start. If you will trust having the conversation, resolving conflicts within yourself so you can arrive at a yes or no, you'll find that there's information out there, there's wisdom, there's insights that will guide you to something that's feels a little better, a little more, aligned with who you are. And you have to kind of have that trust and that faith in life. I'll share an anecdotal story. One of the things I've noticed that I found myself doing is if I was had my version of sex with a woman, so we were intimate. There's kind of the opportunity for some pillow talk after or whatever. And rather than being like, oh, you got to go, or like, I'm not awkward about it. Like if I made a decision for you to be here, I'm chill with it. It's all good. And so I remember I've done this a number of times. It's just because I'm curious. I'm a curious person. So I was like, I want to hear like your dirtiest, raunchiest sexual fantasies. Like, and listen, I promise you, like, absolutely no judgment. I'll tell you mine. I don't care if it's like, you're sucking a dragon's schlong or something. I don't care what it is, right? It could be anything. And they're kind of like, really? And then, as she courageously opens up and kind of shares, you share yours. And then that creates a whole new area where that kind of becomes a level of excitement in the relationship. And it doesn't mean like you have to overcome the fear of, oh no, what if they have a fantasy that means that they might want something that doesn't fit within my idea of a relationship? Mm-hmm. You have to be like, so what? It's just like lighten up with that stuff, and you'll find that there's some magic in when a person just feels like they can be open and honest, and don't wait for people to do that. Just choose to be the leader with that in your life. Mm-hmm. Don't wait for people. You're going to find that it will only create more laughter. It'll create more opportunity, more freedom, more abundance in your life by just being honest with where you're at, both your good qualities and, like you were saying, Dr. Ray, talk about like here's how I am when I'm in a bad mood or when shit doesn't go well. You can expect me like this is how I kind of like find myself handling it, and then now they feel like they can tell you, and then you can both kind of be laughing about, you can turn this into something that's kind of like fodder for comedy, and then instead of being triggered by it because you're up front, you both can offer some support with each other, and you can make the relating be a lot more fun when you're not so uptight and fearful of just who you are, as a person.
Yes. As an example, when I moved to Oregon, it's when I also met my girlfriend, Nicole. And I did share with her openly that there was a lot on my table, and she was witnessing it, and she was inviting me out to do things. So, and I was also physically injured, like by going up and down the stairs and things like that. Like I have broken my ankle like 3 different times. For whatever reason, I had inflammation. I couldn't dance, to where I kept saying to her, no, I can't do this. And here this person's getting to know me for the first time. But also she's a coach, so she's done her inner work. But I said, you're meeting me when I'm in my stuff. I said, so if I don't show up with as much enthusiasm, if I seem stressed or not appreciative as I usually am, it has nothing to do with you. I said, I'm doing my best to manage this, but I'm trying to get stuff out of a box. I was trying to get my son situated with a private teacher. There's so many things I was just trying to get done. And people who have moved before, and you're also juggling children, you understand what I'm talking about. Well, while in the middle of that, I was getting to know a woman. And so, I had thoughts of, I did, again, it would be easier for me to not have to say, show up and be solo until I had, say, all my ducks on place, put the relationship on a layaway plan. But I said, you know what, like, if you're going to get to know me, why not get to know me when I'm moving through this stuff? Because maybe you can also collaborate. Maybe I can even learn something new from this, to also trusting that I have the tools and the self-knowingness to make this work anyway while I'm dealing with this, because there's no perfect time. Sure, it looks like when you're clear, your nervous system's less stressed, that it would be easier. And there's truth in that. But also for me, again, I like to lean into the Chinese stars that are being thrown at me. Mm-hmm. I want to be challenged to grow. And so we went for it, and we've been together for almost 2 years, and it's very amazing. And she met me during a time that was probably the most challenging for me.
Well, what I'm hearing from that too is you were clear and secure enough in yourself to just admit where you were to her without any kind of neediness, or you weren't pushing or pulling her. Mm-hmm. You were just saying, yeah, you're right. This is where I'm at. This is what I'm going through, whatever. And that's what's going on, and I'm not going to run or push you away. What feels good to you? And you gave her that freedom to decide, so she didn't feel pressured or like she's chasing. And so you guys negotiated it. So you had a calm enough of your nervous system, not perfect, but like you weren't carrying you weren't acting from an unconscious program of just pushing her away unconsciously, knee jerk or chasing or something like that. You were secure and like, I accept where I am right now. I'm in a go mode or a little more stress in my life, and it is what it is. I think that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. But here's the shadow. Again, I mentioned that it doesn't matter if someone has been a coach for 30 years or is this some grand master. I've been doing this for a very long time, and new stuff shows up. And it was who was that person saying, "Hey, I'm sorry, I'm not like this or that." Like, where did that come from? Where I have to be perfect? To like, oh my God, who's that person saying I got to be on? Oh, there's that part of me not accepting me where I'm at. And that was part of it also. I kept injuring myself because I wouldn't rest. I couldn't go to the gym. So a lot of that projecting onto her or saying, I'm this way, was also me to hear myself and recognize like, wait a minute, I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself, because when I shared that with her, she actually was probably more compassionate about it than I was. She's like, I really like you.
Yeah.
I really like, thank you this is a breath of fresh air. You're like not trying to be anything else than what you are right now. This is very attractive to me. I called you in. I wanted an authentic man, and here you are. I'm like, okay. So then her sharing that back with me, it lit me up. That itself is very healing. That was very healing, because I went, wow, I am trying to be like perfect still. Or like there's this idea that I will be less if I'm not able to dance, or I'm less because I'm like I'm not showing up happy with, this vibrant light shooting on my eyes and going, I'm good, and so forth. There was a lot of self-acceptance, like another level of that during that experience.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I know I have to laugh when you say, I know those moments when you feel like it's a risk to like own who you are. And the other person's like, oh yeah, it's like, they even find it adorable or something like that. And you're like, it's very liberating. You're like, wow, okay, I really made a big deal out of that, didn't I? It's like, holy shit. I think again, if I'm, I'm listening to your story. And so what I would extract from that as, for the viewer, if there was a takeaway, it'd be, you're going to always have room to grow. So just accept that as true, because you're human. However, it is really like, what you need is not to be perfect, but what you need is to be aware, have the consciousness and awareness, and you need tools that help you just so that you can be clear and having the courage to just express who you are despite the feeling of being triggered, whatever. That's what I'm hearing in it. You had the courage to, you call it the shadow, as you said, the pattern, but you had courage to do something about it. Like that came down to saying yes to you, is my point.
Yes.
Like you said yes to doing the right thing.
And if we were to call that shadow, like the transparent hidden belief would be that I'm more attractive when I'm vibrant and happy and seem on, or like it was just this overarching statement that I had. And I never knew that exists until I entered this relationship. But thank God it was with a woman who is very good at communicating and very unconditional, and was able to communicate her attraction to me, including what you just mentioned, that, she thought it was very attractive, because she said, I'm used to guys trying to be something that they're not, like they withhold. And I have to find out things later on, or it's just going to show up, because you can only pretend for so long.
And I'm having a moment, Dr. Ray, where I love that you shared that, because I'm having a moment of self-realization as well, where I'm seeing that pattern, and absolutely has been in myself, where I've had so much stuff to do or to catch up, or, as guys, we really care about, like, we're trying, like, God, can I just put a period on the end of the sentence and then I can relax? It's just like we just can't. It'd be very difficult to let that go, and we can be a little so yang with it that we choke out beauty in our life and forget that, just like, yes, you want to put the period on the end of the sentence, you want to hit the achievement, but that's secondary. That's not the point. Don't forget that it's okay to be where you're at, with that. And I think women, can be pretty amazing at helping us to understand that as men. So we're kind of coming up towards the end here, and I wanted to pivot, and this would be a really good spot because I know you have some programs. You have a program called Relationship Rescue that is designed for people who are wanting to, I think it's either if they're wanting to be in a relationship or if they're in one, and essentially they're wanting to have that ability to be their true selves and in a relationship without feeling like I've lost myself, or I can't say I can't express my feelings or say what I want without it leading to triggers and toxicity and arguing and all this kind of stuff. So would you share a little bit about that program? I'd love to hear first, like, why did you create it? Like, for you, I want to hear your personal reason, like what inspired you to create this program, and then tell me what it actually kind of looks like for the person if they were to do it.
Okay, so I created this program basically for almost like this conversation when it comes to who am I? Why do I feel this way? And why do I think this way about relationships? So that's why I call it Rapid Relationship Rescue. It's not a program to help you find your equal. It is a program for you to strip away those negative narratives. So with the PDF and the videos in there, it guides you through a process with questions to answer so you could be reflective in the way that I have been sharing here on this conversation with you. And because you might be going, how do I get to that place? How do I become self-aware or come up with those like overarching statements? And so if you do this program, you will have that experience where you will have a judgment about something, or it will guide you to maybe a childhood experience to where you'll extract from that, oh, this is how I started thinking about relationships or myself. And again, like you mentioned, it's for people in relationships or who are single to prepare themselves to have a better love map to their hearts and happiness.
Awesome. And if, so it's like a self-guided, do-it-yourself.
Yes.
Home program. Is something that they need to do over a certain period of time, or is it like they can just?
No, once they have access to it by just going to my website and it's free, they could just keep pulling back up the videos. It's there for life for them to, do the process in the convenience of their own home whenever they want, when the kids are asleep or whatever else.
And if they wanted to get their hands on that, where could they find that?
It's the actual the link. You can put it down in the conversation below, correct? You have for
yeah. What we'll pop a link on the video here, and then we'll put a link in the description below.
Because it does it's on my website, but there's like a longer, like I don't want to say it right now, but it's like www.raydoctor.com/ that whole thing. So
perfect. Okay, yeah, we'll put it down there. Yeah, no worries. Very cool. Well, we can go ahead and close this out, but I think we might have future conversations. And if you guys watching, if there's something about this conversation that, even if it triggered you, or you had a question or a follow-up or a question for Dr. Ray or myself, an idea for something to discuss, like a topic you'd like to be addressed, feel free to leave that in the comments and let me know. And then maybe I can get Dr. Ray back on here and we can have a conversation about that. I've known you for, gosh, how long have we known each other, Dr. Ray? It's been at least like
12 years.
Yeah, like 12 years.
15. Yes.
On that hike in Runyon Canyon. I remember that. It's pretty fascinating to see, like, in many ways, you're exactly the same person, but in other ways, like, there's tons of growth. And I think I can say the same, in return. I think we've had our way of helping each other grow in certain areas, which is why we still stay connected. And I definitely appreciate all the value that you brought in my life with, I know you really are, like, you have some serious kung fu when it comes to breakthroughs. And I've told you that many times, like rapid, quick, just get to the point. You have such a masculine approach to it. It just requires a person to be willing to surrender to the process.
Mhm.
But if you will, what you get out of it is a potent flip in your psyche. You can really find much more, as I say, calmness in the nervous system as you begin to see and have these deeper insights into the self. And when you clear that energy up, it really does open up new possibilities and creates excitement and anticipation for what's possible, in your life, with your relationship with yourself, and romantic relationships, business relationships, and so on. So just thank you for being who you are and being my friend, and being willing to come on here and share what you know with others.
I appreciate that. And it's been amazing to see your growth and who you've become and continue to become as well. I appreciate what you shared also with the work that I do. In this conversation, when I talked about the hidden beliefs, that very much is a big part of what I do. And it is in my upcoming book that's being edited at the moment, to where there's a big section on that of how to do that. I don't know when it'll be out, hopefully in the next 3 months, but it gives you a better explanation of how to get to those overarching statements. Now, say with technology, like on our planet, when it comes to psychology and life tools like that, we have come a long way. So I like to believe that I'm on the vanguard. Like, I am a pioneer of discovering all these new things that actually work. So this process, in a way, is a kind of like a way to get access to the true problems that a lot of people have, like on steroids. It's where, it's one thing to go, oh, this is my shadow. But now what do you do with that? How do you transform that? And I'll give you an idea. So if a person discovers that she or he has trust issues, well, they might think, how do I get rid of this? How do I get rid of this? Now, this might sound too simple, but it has worked. Well, that person might, now knowing that, say, I'm learning how to trust myself. I'm learning how to trust life. And it's by little things, by telling someone no that they haven't said no to where in little interactions in life where they crystallize with their own action, the new becoming of them being more confident with their yes and no's so they can trust themselves. I've seen people, without going down that 5 to 10 years of working on themselves and nothing changing, to be able to discover and experience a new version of themselves by finding that shadow and matching that shadow with the light in actions and relationship they want to become. So in my upcoming book, it has that in there as well. But also in that program that they can download, it has some of that information as well to connect to that, to shift that within your body so you see your life start to truly change.
I'm curious, do you have a working title for the book yet?
No.
Okay, so it's coming. Okay.
That's the easy part. It's funny, my approach on this, because I'm very creative. To me, that's like the frosting on the cake. So I'd rather just kind of get the bulk, the ingredients, and the fun part, the sexy part. Let me do that later, because what has happened is the book has shifted different directions, but it is a manual for people to do self breakthroughs.
Awesome. Well, what we'll do then is when you are ready to publish that, let's get you back on and we'll do an overview of the book.
Okay, great.
Perfect. Cool.
Hi, it's Dr. Ray here, and thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate your support, and you are the one who drives this channel. So if you like to be notified when new videos come out, please subscribe to my channel and push the bell button so you are notified when new videos come out. I appreciate you supporting this channel.